Well, welcome to our Mothers Making a Difference author interviews. I'm so excited to finally be in this space and to put a face to a name. So today we are talking to the gorgeous Romecca Sawers, who is from Meant to Rise, and she is one of my all-time favorite people on this planet. She is incredible and doing awesome things. So welcome.
Thanks, Jazz. Woo! So excited. We're here. Hold on. All right, let's get to it.
Awesome. So, everybody has a story, and you have a phenomenal story. I have read your book, and I cried, I laughed, I cried some more. Can you share with our readers a little bit more about your story and, about your transition into motherhood as well?
Quick, I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse, and my book, Because I Was Abused, is basically the voice. It's a story. It's telling my story through the voice of the child, the teenager, the mother, and the woman I am today. And it shares my life from the age of 5 years old, and even before that, just growing up in a home that was violent. And there was no nurturing, there was no support, there was no encouragement to dream and think of anything else than what was happening at home. And with the child sexual abuse that started when I was 5 years old, that's as far back as I can recollect, and which I discovered as I was writing my book. Now, that, of course, the impacts of child sexual abuse had rolled into different parts of my life. As I was a teenager, I was self-harming. I became anorexic. I then developed bulimia, and then that went off and it rippled into bigger, massive waves that was destroying my life, such as I became addicted to drugs, alcohol, and it really controlled my life with just living in that shame and that guilt and that hurt and that not feeling believed and supported and having anybody who cared about me. And my mother, really, I didn't have a great relationship, if we call anything that we had a relationship at all, because she had her own trauma that she had never dealt with. So her trauma of child sexual abuse and having a child at 13 by her own father had impacted her and then me. So that was a generational trauma that was passed on, and I had to bear then. So in my life, child sexual abuse had impacted the way I saw myself. It had impacted the way I let others treat me. It had impacted the way I treated myself. I did everything to destroy my life. And, suicide was something that I had attempted several times, with alcohol and with medication and just trying to find a way out, because I really ultimately just wanted it to all go away. I wanted the hurt to go away. I wanted people who cared for me. I wanted my husband to go away. I was like, why are you here? I didn't feel that I deserved love. And so it affected my relationships, and it affected my self-worth. I became addicted to shopping because I thought if I grabbed all the most expensive things, put it all on myself, then people would see me as expensive, as valuable. And I had to go through a lot of healing, obviously. So I had my children, and I still, moving here to Australia, I had thought that if I moved to Australia, to another place, then it would all disappear. And great that I had that hope, but I was ignoring the fact that So I finally did 2010. I had realized that moving to Australia and hoping that it would all go away and disappear, poof, magic, it wasn't happening. So I had to get support. I had to speak to somebody. I had a loving husband. I had two beautiful children who, but this baggage had followed me. I literally was pulling my baggage with me from childhood into, adulthood, motherhood. And it was stopping me from truly being and truly loving. And I never felt complete and whole and authentic. And I felt like I was hiding behind all that guilt and that shame. And I was raising my children in a way where I was starting to make them try to look perfect with their clothes, their hair, to act perfect. Don't act a certain way outside of the house. Don't yell, don't scream, don't raise your voice. Don't say certain things, because it was that shame. I didn't want judgments, so I was passing on from my childhood to my children, that I carried for so long. So I had to, and with the love and support of my family, to ultimately come to healed, and was able to nurture myself and love myself, to then be able to know what love was to give to my family genuinely. And it was really important that I came back to authentic self, to my identity, to who I am, because it was, if I'm going to pass anything on to my children, it had to be who you are meant to be who God has created you to be, and not worry about judgments of the world, and not let the befores, the past, the generations before, that hurt from them be passed on, and for them to carry. No way was I going to let my children carry that. If I wanted to protect them, that was the biggest thing I wanted to protect them from. I didn't want that. What I carried for so long, that guilt, shame, hurt, suffering, to be passed on to them, because realistically, the trauma, in what I do, the reality is that trauma can be passed on for 6 generations. So it's not just me that carries it, right? It's not just me. Like, I thought it was just me having to deal with this stuff, but no. Like I said earlier, my mother had passed on her trauma to me. And so my mother had suffered with, obviously mental health. She was addicted to alcohol. She had diabetes. She had, I believe it was kidney disease, obviously associated to diabetes. She had so many other things addictions to drugs as well. So, and then I think of my grandmother, and my grandmother was pretty much the same. She was domestic violence, alcohol, all of their stuff, their baggage was passed on and rolled to me. And here I was, packing it tidy into my bag and carrying it with me, and packing it, making it hide inside, and tidying it up as pretty as possible, so others didn't see the guilt and the shame that I carried. And that was massive, to think that I'm going to then pass it on to, so my own personal trauma gets passed on from me, and then 6 generations, right? And I thought, that's myself, my daughter, and my son, their children, so my grandchildren, their grandchildren, so my great-grand. And I was just thinking, when does it stop?
Yeah.
When does it stop? And it's knowing that, when does it stop? It stops with us. And it is literally putting the foot down and putting my hand down firmly and saying, no more.
Yep.
Enough.
Yep.
Enough. It has to change. Enough. Because I'm not worthy. Enough with that I should be carrying this shame around. Enough with this hurting myself, destroying my family. Enough with all of this. because that abuse, the experiences of the past, how dare that even attempt to try to take my children's life and show up maybe as anxiety or eating disorder or heart disease or fibromyalgia or diabetes, which I've had, but I've overcome. I've reversed my diabetes. I do have fibromyalgia. I have arthritis in the spine, all that other stuff. Anyways, it's not going to define me. It's just continuing to move forward. And how can we continue to, it's looking at how can I pass on the practical skills of everyday living, of taking care of self, pass that on to my children, whether it's the way we think, how we treat ourselves, how, you know, our self-care, how much we love ourselves, how much we stand up for ourselves, how much we say no and set boundaries, how much I practice my breathing and making sure that I'm good. Those are the practical, and those are the things that are going to, you know, how we teach our kids, you've got to learn how to iron your shirt. You've got to learn how to cook for yourself, because these are the things that if we can teach them to make their own lunches, if I die tomorrow, they're set. They can take care of themselves, right? I'm good. I'm in peace, no regret, no shame, no guilt. And if I can teach them how to be able to take care of themselves, to remember to breathe, don't be reactive. Breathe and remember that I am taking back, you know, I wash myself of Rose. I wash myself of my past. I wash myself clean of all this. I'm going to remember to breathe. I am my own person. My past does not define me. My mother has taught me how to strengthen me. So that, you know, I think that if we're looking at, most of us women want to leave a legacy, the most impactful legacy. And for me, I had to sit back and think, what do I want to be known for? What is the legacy I want to leave behind? I knew that I didn't want to be laying in the hospital bed on my last day, on my last breath, and in regret or shame or guilt. I wanted to be at peace knowing that I have done the best that I could, and it didn't mean I could give them the best. No way, because I don't buy children everything. It was just being the best I could and doing the best that I can and learning. So I knew that I just had to continue to continue to think, you know, the legacy is to live my life to the fullest, to live my life as authentically and as true, and speaking my voice, and to be able to, you know, honor and love myself, because they'll see that. And I think that that's really important.
I was going to ask you actually what you wanted your legacy to be, but can we take it back a step? Because, you know, I think
yes.
It's starting to become...
Sorry, Jess, I just love to...
No, that's amazing. This talk about self-care, I think, is a big one, because, you know, there's a lot in the media and there's in magazines, and we see this notion of self-care, and, you know, it's this idea that we should be taking a bath and we should be looking after ourselves. But you mentioned that, you know, encouraging our children to self-care, which is huge. And watching them watch us self-care, I think, is one of the greatest gifts, particularly, I feel, for our girls. I want my daughter to be able to see that she doesn't have to wear that busy mum badge of honor. She doesn't have to push until she's exhausted, she's depleted. I think it's beautiful that you're teaching your children, and particularly your daughter, to stand for her. You know, I saw, what did I see recently, that there was a article going around that going to Target and getting your kids socks and undies is not self-care because you're doing it alone. And I think that's where many of us have gone wrong. You know, alone time, going to do the grocery shopping or going to Target to get things, that's not self-care. You know, it's what you're talking about. It's about self-love and being gentle. And that's a big lesson, I think, so many of us need to learn, is gentleness. You know, we're too harsh. And
it is.
Talking about that generational, going back 6 generations, I'm thinking to myself, Now, I wonder so many of us have mental health issues because we're carrying,
Yes,
you know. Um,
exactly.
Leads into the work you're doing now. Can you tell us
Exactly.
a little bit more about the work that you're doing? You're doing phenomenal things in the world.
Yeah.
You certainly are a mother making a difference. Can you share a bit more about that?
Thanks, Jess. Yeah. Just quickly remind me, I'm sorry. It's just because I feel like even with self-care is really about is can show up like speaking up. Yes, being very compassionate and loving to self, being very empathetic, empathetic with ourselves. How is that not possible for some? We just keep going, keep doing. We're just like, yeah, yeah, just suck it up. You just get over it. Just do it. Just deal with it, right?
Yeah.
No, be empathetic. And as we would get down on our knees to that little child,
Yeah. Yeah.
what do you need?
Yeah.
All right, darling, I know you're feeling like crap. What can I get for you? Just really having that conversation with self. And and I think that that's really important, and saying no,
Yeah.
setting our boundaries,
Mm.
those are the big things of how we can self-care. And it can come down to even just when you're putting on your moisturizer, smelling it,
Mm.
really allowing self to take in the moments of the being present to my senses want to smell. And
Mm.
I want to smell this beautiful moisturizer that I've bloody spent whatever dollars on it. And I want to smell it because in the shop it smelled fantastic. So it's going, okay, I'm going to rub it really gently and compassionately and empathetically because, we're not going to go like this because really that's not loving and caring and compassionate, but really gentle, really nurturing self. And taking care of the wounds, the inside wounds, and nurturing self. And then smelling self, that it's beautiful, that's what we are doing, is we are intentionally allowing ourselves to be present, to love self, to take care, to pamper self. We don't have to have a luxurious spa day. How fantastic that would be. But when we don't have that, we use what we have, the things that we bought at the shop that we thought were so beautiful and smelled fantastic, and use that. um, and let your kids hug you and rub your back as well, and really console you if you need, because we've worked hard to teach them how to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
But that has also we've taught them how to take care of others too.
Yeah.
And so, it's that's a beautiful cycle. If we're looking at recreating cycles,
Yeah.
we recreate cycles in that way, and that's beautiful. Hey, like I just see that aura and that energy that's within that, the beautiful colors that comes from the space of a mother who is taught to give. And then ultimately we gave selflessly, not realizing, but hey, it comes back to us.
Mm.
And that is self-care as well,
Mm.
right? So we're intentionally giving. You give what you're going to get. I guess it's what it comes back to. So thank you, Jess. So I'm sorry, what was the other question you said?
What?
You asked me. I go in tangents.
No. No, that's amazing. That's beautiful. And I think in that too is learning to receive as well, because I
Yeah.
know for me, it took me a really long time I was doing so much for other people, but I didn't allow them the beauty of giving as well, because for me to receive and them give, they get something as well, so it's that
Yeah,
reciprocity. But
it is.
the question was, you're doing amazing things, so please share all the amazing and incredible things that you're doing right now, mother making a difference. What are you up to?
Yes. Okay. So, okay. In the past week now. So I'm pretty much, I've got a few projects coming through. So I've got Time to Heal, which is my guide for survivors who are on their journey of healing from child sexual abuse. That is in the works, and I'm hoping to release this year in 2021. And the next project I have, it's a compilation of survivors' stories. Basically, it's a space where it's like a community in a book, but it's to be able to encourage others that, hey, here are quite a few women, minimum of, or about 20 women who are sharing their story, but it is also a platform where the authors, so we are going to put the call out for these authors to who are interested and want to take that opportunity to use it as a platform. It can be a platform where they go ahead and speak in a way where it's can be, what do they want to say to the abuser. And for me and my journey, being able to, it wasn't necessarily my abuser. I spoke to my abuser, or speaking to my abuser was going to mean nothing. For me, the biggest person, the one person I wanted to speak to was my mother. Right? Because she was my biggest, she was supposed to be the one who's my role model, who loves and cares for me. And so for me, that's where the being able to voice and share the story in a way where it can be for, yes, to confront the abuser, or the person who you felt was not there as they were supposed to be, you know, who was supposed to be the responsible one. So that's another project. I am starting a podcast that's called Start With The One. Yeah, I know, right? It's like be able to just have conversations as though we're having here, bring a cup of coffee and talk about all things, you know, and basically to have a focus of empowerment and positivity, all bundled up, and just having the, it's targeted at, you know, I think the space will be quite as an eclectic, eccentric individual, because we all, you know, I think there's so many of us who feel like we don't, you know, we don't fit in the boxes, and we don't tick those boxes. We're not part of the labels.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be fantastic. And the other one is the Empowered Survivors TV, and that's a YouTube channel. So it's, again, we've got a Facebook page for that, and we're working on the website, but it's really a space where it's about how can we empower survivors out there who we can't meet in person, or who feel alone, or who don't have anyone they can talk to. But this will be a space where survivors will share their story, you know, of ultimately it's sharing it in that space of where they have come from, and what are they doing now to empower themselves or continue on their journey of healing, what has helped them. We're also going to get experts in the space of trauma. So just to be able to explain what does trauma do? What does it do to a child's brain and their development? What happens to a mother, you know, if she's pregnant, has carried that trauma? What happens in utero? So, because of course it gets passed on through our epigenetics is one of the things they call it. So all neuroscience and neurobiology, scientific stuff. But we're also going to talk about nutrition.
Yeah.
It'll be the simple things of simple practices of, you know, some breathing exercises that are really important for being able to regulate self as again, and start to work on the nervous system, the sympathetic, the parasympathetic. So it's basically, we want to get people not in fight or flight, not in depression, but just in that space where they're just like, yeah, I love a life. I can, you know, just be, I can be me. So it's massive, and there's so much to cover on that. And I'm looking forward to that really being serving others, just being of service to others is my focus, and giving to others and being there as I would, you know, I guess it's always going back to what would have helped me in my journey when I was back then, and who would I have wanted to be there for me, and what did I need? And so it's just providing that, and bringing in people who have walked the journey, who understand, who are able to help and offer assistance, and that's really empowering for survivors. So yeah,
Beautiful.
I think that's it, Jess. We'll see what happens next week.
Yeah, that's right. It's a bit like that, isn't it?
It is, and I love public speaking. So I mean, I'm always up for going up and speaking to audiences, whether it doesn't matter their age, because I think that no matter how old we are, there's always room for growing,
Yeah.
and there's always something we can learn.
Yeah.
And look, everything that I speak about, I know I have learned from somebody else. I might have gotten an awareness within myself, but it is passing on. That's what we can pass on to generations, is that knowledge, that wisdom of empowerment, and break those beliefs and those stigmas that don't serve us as a society moving forward, and that actually causes us fear and shame, and it causes us to hide away, with all the judgments. And so, like, when we can, I really love to get up there and just be like, this is me, let's do this, let's get real,
Yeah.
let's talk about the real things, what's going to help. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
child sexual abuse is obviously one of those issues. So
Yeah. It's a huge issue. And yeah, I'm so grateful to you,
yes,
all that you
yes.
do. It's not easy
uh,
stepping into vulnerability and out of your comfort zone and
oh
having the
Chad,
courage, but
yes,
you are so inspiring.
yeah.
Mm, mm.
Oh God, I was just remembering there was one other thing. Oh, I do have Meant to Rise. Meant to Rise is
Yeah.
a charity that supports survivors of child sexual abuse, which I founded in 2018 just to be able to provide that space where we can where survivors can come through and be loved, to be nurtured, to feel safe and not feel judged, but to be able to
Mm,
heal and move forward and
mm,
find what it is that need, find themselves again, so they can take back
mm,
what was taken away from them, whether that's their joy, their peace, their life, their voice, their love, their
mm.
freedom to choose,
Yeah.
freedom to express self. That is massive. So I am so grateful, and I really like to really like to
Yeah.
do that through everything that I do, is that, yeah, give that freedom of choice,
So
and
much
speak up.
goodness.
Oh gosh, yes. So I'm hoping to, I definitely need a huge, massive team of supports around me, and I do have amazing women. So I'm really grateful, and I was thinking about
Mm,
that the other day, that I'm so grateful for
mm.
the women and the men, because I have an amazing husband and I have a beautiful son. My son has taught me. I never thought I would have a son. I literally was
Aw.
like, okay, and he, yeah, and here he was my blessing,
Yeah.
because he taught me how to be funny again. He taught me how to have humor. So it's my husband. Like, I used to think my husband was like, I don't know what I used to think about him. We'll save that for later. But anyways, they have taught me what love looks like, and
Yeah.
unconditional love, and that was massive, because I didn't know what that looked like, from growing up and having none of it. It was just like, other than, okay, I need to give my body for love. But it was like, no, 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 you don't need to,
Yeah.
you don't need to give me anything. I'm here to be here for you. And my son, if he's just such a blessing. He is so clever, and he just brings me back to here, back to what's important, brings me back to what's important with my values, making sure I'm not judging others,
Mm,
and, and myself included. And he consoles me. He is that beautiful blessing of a man who is be one of those men in the future who will show what comes from a woman
mm,
who had fought
mm,
to be able to raise
mm.
this young man to be a man. And I think, again, going back to the legacy, he will know how to care for himself, so
Mm.
that he can care for the women around him and his son, and raise his son as well, in a way where there is love and nurturing, no judgments, no violence, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to envision for the future. So bless the men, but thank you to the women who have supported me along the way, and the women who have pushed me, who have hurt me, because obviously I've learned many lessons along the way, and I've learned how to forgive, which was the biggest thing. And you know what? Being able to forgive, once you can do that, I think you can do anything. You thought that giving birth was massive. Forgiveness is bigger, because you're releasing so that you can then birth more. More can come through. You release so you can go ahead and create for the better of the world. And I think that that's beautiful. Hey, that's powerful. So thank you, Jess, for being one of those amazing women. You are an inspiration as well. Beautiful.
Thank you. I'll receive that.
That's okay. Yes, you will. You better receive that though.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being here. You know that I am just admire you so much, and all that you do, and the courage. And I absolutely loved your book, Because I Was Abused. It's a great read. You know, if you have gone through something similar, you will not be disappointed. It is a very raw. I couldn't put it down. It was just a phenomenal book. And it truly did touch me very, very deeply, very deeply. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our Mothers Making a Difference author interviews. Thank you, Romecca, for being here. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for being uniquely you, for stepping into vulnerability and showing.
Thank you.
So the book will be released on the 5th of May. You can order your copy now. We are in our pre-release stage, which is really exciting. Just head to my website, which is www.jessurmac.com, to register your interest. But yes, thank you so much. You take care, and we will speak very soon.